Her Fitbit hit 126 BPM at 3:12 a.m. I wasn't looking for a story. I wanted steps. 10,000 a day, like religion for people who hate kneeling. Nina had convinced me to buy the same tracker she wore, hers rose gold and decisive, mine black and trying not to be dramatic. We synced them so we could compete on something harmless. Sleep scores, resting heart rate, the idle joy of closing rings. We were going to be that couple, the one with matching water bottles and smug cardiovascular systems. On a Monday that already felt like a rerun, I was in line for coffee when the app pinged. Unusual activity detected in Nina's sleep. The graph had a polite mountain in the middle of the night, a spike like a confession. At 3:12 a.m., her heart rate hit 126. For 8 minutes, it hovered there like a hummingbird refusing to land. She was, according to the app, asleep. I stared at the number as if it could be negotiated. Maybe a nightmare, I thought. Maybe the cat leapt on her chest. Except we don't have a cat, just a plant we keep calling. The plant like it hasn't earned a name. Maybe she went to the kitchen and ate a spoonful of peanut butter, and the body does drama for peanuts. I told myself all the reasonable lies and then ordered my coffee like a person whose life wasn't being graphed by a rectangle on a wrist. At home, Nina was already gone, a note on the table in her quick practical handwriting. Early start, presentation at 9, don't be brilliant without me. The note was cute the first 1,000 times. That morning it felt like a receipt. I did the thing you do when you suspect a ghost but want a draft of the haunting before you admit it. I went looking for wind. Texts, calendar, her laptop left open on the dining table like a lake you could fall into by accident. I'm not proud. I also didn't find anything. No poetic half-sentences, no hotel confirmations, not even a suggestive emoji in a sea of logistics. Everywhere I looked, Nina was the same person she was in rooms, relentless, competent, a little impatient with the ordinary. The tracker was the only traitor. I tried to be science about it. I Googled sleep HR spike causes like a man who thinks his marriage could be cured by hydration. Anxiety, caffeine, stress. All the behaviors we were rich in. I made a deal with myself. One more night, and if the graph behaves, I'll apologize to the air for thinking badly of it. The graph did not behave. At 3:07 a.m., 118. At 3:10, 131. At 3:12, 126, like a signature. 8 minutes again, a ritual length too precise to be chaos. And then the drop, steady, contented, the body saying, "Thank you, more later." In the morning, she kissed me in the doorway like we were auditions for ourselves. "You're quiet," she said, and I said, "Just tired, like a man who has decided to keep his teeth." At lunch, I walked to the park to interrogate a bench. I watched people on their own screens, thumbs swiping, faces glowing with small reasons. Across from me, a woman sat down too carefully, the way someone does when they're carrying something breakable in their chest. She wore a charcoal coat and an expression like she'd rehearsed a different one and forgot it. We looked up at the same time. Eye contact is a currency. I spent just enough. She held it a second longer, then looked at my wrist. "You do 10,000, she asked, a joke with training wheels. "On days when there's not math to do," I said. She tapped her own tracker, rose gold, same model as Nina's. "Math," she said. "That's a kind word for it." I don't know why I answered the person I'd never met instead of the person I love. "Nina's heart rate spiked at 312, I said. The numbers came out like I'd been trying to smuggle them past customs. 2 nights in a row. Her face went through 3 weather systems before it settled on clear. "Elias," she said, and then laughed at herself for giving me her name like it was a life jacket. "Sorry, I'm Myra." Mark, I said. She inhaled like she was about to dive and then said, my husband's did too. 3:10 yesterday, 3:13 today. I thought the app was drunk, or I was, but it keeps signing its name to the same place on the graph. We sat there, two strangers with synchronized dread, our wrists politely glowing. If we had been braver, we might have stood and walked away from the symmetry. We were. We compared notes like detectives on a budget, their jobs, hers consulting, mine directing branded content with delusions, their alibis, night emails, early meetings, the small domestic habits we could inventory like proof that love is something you can count. I realized Nina had started showering at night again. Myra noticed her husband had started running at lunchtime, with a sudden ferocity that didn't show up on the scale. Maybe it's a glitch, I said, the word so thin it almost floated away. Glitches don't book rooms, she said, then winced like the word had cut her on the way out. Sorry, I think in sentences lately. I could have told her to go to him. I could have told myself. Instead, I heard my own mouth ask a question I would judge in anyone else. Do you want to know, or do you want to keep the before version a little longer? I want to stop being an unpaid actor in a play I didn't audition for, she said. But I also don't want to do the scene where I bang on a hotel door and the internet claps. We exchanged numbers with the solemnity of people who knew we'd use them badly or well, but definitely soon. She typed Mark 3, 12 under my name, and I put Mira 3, 10/3, 13, which made us both laugh in that absurd, grateful way you laugh before a funeral. That night I slept on purpose, the kind of sleep where you force your body under and hope your mind obeys. At 2:58 the app buzzed. At 3:12 the mountain grew. Myra texted 3:11. I texted back a hotel pinned on the map that I hated myself for knowing. Not because I'd used it, I hadn't yet, but because I make videos for a living and spend too much time in lobbies pretending to be the person whose name is on the reservation. The hotel had smoked glass and a rooftop where people practice being seen. If this is wrong, I wrote, we can both be wrong together and call it exercise. She answered with a single word that felt like a dare and a prayer. Today. We met at 4 on a corner where the city faked its own calm. She had her hair in a knot that wasn't trying to impress anyone. I had on a jacket that tried too hard. No scenes, she said, just facts. The lobby smelled like eucalyptus and money. We didn't look at each other when we asked the desk if we could use the bar. We didn't look at each other when we took stools facing a wall of bottles that spelled oblivion in amber. We did look at the elevator doors reflected in the steel. At 4:39, the doors opened and a couple stepped out, both wearing the face of people who have negotiated something unethical with themselves and won a discount. It wasn't them. At 5:03 it was. Nina first, her coat unbuttoned, her hair with that gentle disarray I know like my own name. Behind her, a man with the kind of posture you don't buy, you inherit. I didn't need to see his face to recognize the slope of his shoulders from all Nina's stories. Evan said the client won't love it, but they'll love us. Evan eats yogurt like he's trying to read it. The world didn't slow down. It stayed the same speed and dared me to keep up. Myra's hand found the edge of the bar. She didn't look at me. I didn't look at her. We watched our lives pass 6 feet away with the quiet you keep for museums. Nina moved like she always moves, 2 steps faster than anyone in the room. Evan touched her elbow not like possession but like choreography, 2 dancers remembering they had been amateurs once. What do we do? I asked without moving my mouth. Not this, Myra said and stood. We didn't follow them. We went up. The rooftop had the kind of view that makes everybody behave like they were born kinder. It was cold enough to be embarrassing. The heater clicked twice and then pretended to work. Myra leaned on the rail as if gravity were a polite suggestion. "I thought I wanted to knock," she said. "I don't. I wanted to be the person who can walk away before it turns me into a story I hate hearing." "Same," I said, which was only partly true. The other part of me wanted a speech with high notes and pointed lines, but the rooftop air cut pride into smaller pieces. She looked at my mouth and then at the skyline, as if there were translations available. "I don't want to borrow you to erase him," she said. "And I don't want to use you to prove I still exist," I said. "So what do we want?" She smiled, a clean, ruined thing. "Something slow," I said. "Something that isn't revenge dressed as comfort." "Then we start with a decision and not a kiss," she said. "Or maybe we let the kiss be the decision." The first touch was the warmest part of the afternoon. Not a theft, not a dare. Our mouths found a center that didn't apologize for its timing. She tasted like coffee and a future that didn't demand an oath. It was the kind of kiss that belongs to daylight, measured, honest, not trying to perform for anyone but the two people in it. We stopped when we could have kept going because some lines you don't move until you understand who drew them. "Okay," she said, breathing out a little cloud. "Now we can tell the truth." We walked back down without looking for them. On the sidewalk, a woman with a dog asked if we knew where the florist moved. We gave her directions like we were just other people living in the same city. At home, Nina was at the stove like a theater stagehand making the scene plausible, the smell of garlic and apology. She looked up and measured my face like a tailor. "Long day?" she asked, a line we'd both rehearsed. I could have waited. I could have been generous with the timeline. Instead, I set my phone on the table and said, "At 3:12 your heart rate hits the sky, because apparently I'm a poet with a vendetta. Tell me that's a nightmare." She went still, which is not the same as being quiet. "Mark," she said, my name a fragile thing, "I'm sorry." For a ridiculous second, I hated that she went straight to the apology, as if we could skip the math. Then I realized the apology was the math. I didn't perform the scene where I list dates and say I knew all along. I asked one question. "Is it Evan?" She nodded, a small bow. It wasn't supposed to be anything but an exit hatch for stress. Then it was a room. Then it was, I don't know what to call it that doesn't make me a villain. "You're not a villain," I said, which made both of us wince in the same key. It wasn't absolution. It was a map with one road on it. She put the spoon down carefully, like noise would break the kitchen. "Do you want to hate me now or later?" she asked. "I don't want to hate you," I said. "I want to stop lying to the room we live in." We did paperwork talk for people, therapy, a pause, logistics. "A month," she said. "You at Liam's, me here. We don't sleep with anyone. We figure out whether we're building a new thing or calling the contractor to knock it down." I told her I'd already been on a roof with someone who knows what a heart at 3:12 means. She didn't ask who, which I think was a kind of love or a kind of surrender. "Be good," she said, and the sentence was so plain it almost killed me. At Liam's, my brother, my couch, I lay under a ceiling that had never heard me argue. Myra texted. I told him. He cried the way people do when they're performing being alone in a room. He's going to his brother. "I'm making soup like an idiot." I wrote back. I told her. "I'm making toast like an accomplice. Want to walk tomorrow by the canal where the joggers pretend they're alone." We met in the morning. The canal did its useless shimmer. We did not kiss. We did that other kind of intimacy, the one where sentences arrive without costumes. We walked until my watch buzzed and told me I was a good boy. We sat on a bench and admitted we were not. There were nights after that, not the kind the app would write an essay about. We kept it on the side of honest, the side with light. Shirts still on, mouths writing small drafts on skin, hands learning a map they asked permission to follow. We left room for the morning to recognize us. I learned the hollow beneath her collarbone. She learned the part of my shoulder that makes language lazy. We stopped when stopping cost something. We were proud of our restraint like teenagers with philosophy degrees. Do I forgive Nina? Forgiveness is a door that swings if the hinges are right. We oil it together in therapy with sentences that don't try to be interesting. She moved the plant to the window and named it, finally, Two-Way. So we remember to turn it, she said, and we both smiled like people practicing peace. Evan sent me an email. I didn't answer. Myra sent me a picture of a pancake that looked like a heart rate graph. I laughed for a full minute and then put my phone away because some joy is too unsupervised to be seen by glass. If you're waiting for a verdict, you'll have to sit with us in the unglamorous middle. We're building routines out of nothing stronger than intention. Nina and I do our month apart and then another half month because progress is slower than regret. We meet on Thursdays in a cafe where the chairs wobble, which keeps us honest. Some days I think we'll try again and call it something different. Some days I think we're two decent people who mistook momentum for faith. As for Myra, present tense is the only one I trust. We walk, we talk, we turn toward light, and then, when the light moves, we turn again. I don't know if we're a bridge or a bank. I know I like who I am when I'm with her, the version of me that isn't hiding a room key under a plant. Last night the app congratulated me on excellent sleep. No mountains, no hummingbirds. The graph was almost boring. I lay there watching the blue line behave and thought, this is what quiet looks like, not the absence of sound but the refusal to lie about it. At 7:03 a.m. I got 2 messages. From Nina, therapist at 5, can you make it? From Myra, I found a new bench with a terrible view and excellent honesty. After, I said yes to both because sometimes the moral is only this: you keep stepping. The tracker buzzed, pleased with me. The plant at Nina's turned its leaves toward a window that wasn't where it used to be. And somewhere in the city, other graphs were drawing their little mountains, asking their owners to look, not for blame or theater, but for the exact place where the heartbeat means you're still here and not pretending otherwise.